Don't cross the streams.
Why?
It would be bad.
I'm fuzzy on the whole good-bad thing. What do you mean bad?
Try to imagine all life as you know it stopping instantaneously and every molecule in your body exploding at the speed of light.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and it's time for your Saturday Night Delight. Obviously, Skip and Tosh couldn't make it this week. He had some family issues come up, but Jervain Dargan from Animated Concepts has decided to step in. It's a sad day, in comic books. We got the word last night. Legendary Batman writer and editor Denny O'Neil passed away at the age of 91 yesterday. Everyone at Thinking Critical YouTube is heartbroken to lose the comic book icon. Jervain, how are you doing? How are you going to remember Denny O'Neil?
Well, for me with Denny, it's definitely, I've never met him at any point in my career in comics, which was brief back in the 90s. But Denny, to me, always will be remembered as a true artist. There's that saying that those who can't do teach, and those who can't teach critique. But Denny was somebody who was a great comic writer. He was a great teacher, and he was a great editor, which means he was able to critique other people's work. And I think he's definitely, so for me personally, he's gonna be remembered as a true artist. And I will always remember him from what I think is a very seminal story, not only in terms of what has become the modern part of the modern Batman mythos, but I just think it's a great piece of a great example of what modern comic storytelling should be like, which was the Venom story from Batman Legends of the Dark Knight 16 through 20. If you want to pick up those individual issues, fine. If you want to get the trade paperback, I think anybody who really wants to know how to write a story that is that deals with a social issue, in this case drug abuse and recovery, but also is wildly entertaining, that's the story that you want to examine, and that's the story that you want to deconstruct. And then Denny's also going to be remembered for his work on Batman, without a doubt, because he, along with Neal Adams, they are responsible for the modern version of Batman that we all enjoy today. That's the foundation of a global evergreen media franchise. And then of course, even though I know the SJW stuff is not as much in fashion or welcome, it seems like by a great deal of the fans, he's always going to be remembered for Green Lantern and Green Arrow, hard traveling heroes, which I think, I'm not sure where it was in his career in terms of his writing career, but I think when you take that story and you look at the Batman Venom story, you just saw how over time and over the decades, Denny just continued to improve his storytelling craft and his technique. By the difference where that story you can kind of say was a little bit on the nose, if you will, literally, but with Venom, it was just a much more subtle approach to doing that same kind of storytelling. So Denny O'Neil is not someone to be slept on. Denny O'Neil is definitely someone to be studied, and his wisdom and his craft and his art and his life, he'll be missed. Yeah, he'll be missed.
Absolutely. He definitely, obviously he didn't invent Batman, but he certainly perfected it. The Batman that we have today is Denny O'Neil's Batman. He ushered it in during the 70s. Obviously he was the Batman group editor all the way through the 90s. The most seminal Batman stories of all time literally happened under Denny O'Neil's watch. Obviously there's some modern stuff that are very influential as well, but really, when you look at the breadth of work that he did on Batman, it's unparalleled. And in my opinion, when you think of just the impact he had on the industry, he's right up there with your Stan Lees.
Yep, absolutely.
Just as far as what he was able to do, and he certainly is in the discussion of the Mount Rushmore of comic book industry personalities and people that gave to it. And then if we step away from Batman, you talk about he's probably maybe the best Green Lantern writer of all times as well. He's right up there, with your Jeff Johns, Ron Mars.
Yeah, and I think the only difference between really with Denny and probably Jeff Johns is that Denny, I think, was probably the first person to kind of get Green Lantern and both Green Arrow character, like a very specific or unique point of view. And I think it's very different than what Jeff did, where I think Jeff just made the whole mythos entertaining. I don't know if I necessarily would say that I thought Hal Jordan was a better character as a result of Jeff Johns, but I did think he made the whole mythos a lot more entertaining. It's like it's kind of, I compare like what Jeff did with Green Lantern, what Mark Waid did with Flash. It was like Mark Waid seemed to give the Flash a lot more character. There was like a very specific point of view, especially from the legacy piece. And when I've read a lot of the Jeff, and don't get me wrong, I enjoy the Jeff Johns Green Lantern work, but I think it really was he was making the world more interesting as opposed to Hal Jordan himself more interesting. And I think with Denny, he managed to make Hal a lot more interesting, especially when a lot of that hard traveling hero storyline was basically Green Arrow kind of like dunking on Green Lantern the whole time until Hal had to bring him in and say, well, here's your ward over here doing smack. What about that? So I think Denny was really ahead of his time when it came.
Absolutely. If you think about what he did as far as addressing social issues within the comic books, and he's much less heavy-handed, much more honest about his approach with it, not very preachy. Definitely something a lot of the writers who want to handle those type of issues today could learn from. I think of someone like Brian Edward Hill, who I know is a huge Batman fan. I imagine he was heavily influenced by Denny O'Neil, because when you see him tackle those issues within his comic books with his writing, he's much more honest, open about it, and much less preachy about it. And I think Denny O'Neil and his legacy will live on in creators like Brian Edward Hill, and other people that have been inspired by Denny O'Neil. He was certainly a great loss, and he'll be missed. And definitely a master writer, editor, and just one of the people in the industry. As I've been around this stuff longer and longer, you start hearing about people. One of the people you never hear anyone say a negative word about. Just a truly great gentleman and a huge loss for the industry.
And a great teacher. Never forget that. He was a great teacher. So those who had the benefit to be at his particular learning tree, they have a great legacy to carry on now. And, it's like if you got a chance, I did have the privilege of knowing someone who studied his class, who was kind enough to give me his notes. So that's why it's like, Denny O'Neil is somebody that you definitely want to check out. And definitely, like I said, he will be missed. No doubt.
All right. You ready for the next topic?
Oh, yeah. So, Wes, it turns out CW fired Hartley Sawyer from The Flash after a years-old racially insensitive tweet came to light. This seems to be the latest in an ongoing mass cancellation entertainment. So, do you think that the CW made the right move in letting Sawyer go, Wes?
Well, that one's really tough. So, I'm not a fan of cancel culture. I don't like people getting canceled when they say things that I don't appreciate, or even if I think that they're absolutely wrong. But in this case, the CW is a network, their business. If somebody is out there presenting themselves in a way that doesn't align with their business, then they certainly have every right to fire them or let them go. I do think, this tweet, and I'll be honest, I thought it was somewhat benign, although it was certainly racially charged, happened several years before he was ever hired. So can we ever make mistakes when we're young? Do we get to let the past behind us at some point? And it really feels like right now there's a mass movement to just go and look people's like social media and just call them out and trying to get everyone fired. So I do think every time one of these firings happens, the threshold for the next firing gets lowered and lowered, and eventually the only people that'll be in entertainment are the most boring milquetoast people that are not willing to talk about anything interesting, for discourse. So personally, I don't like it because I don't like cancel culture, but I completely understand it from CW's point of view. It is their business.
Yeah, well, I'll say this. So my thing on it is this, is that, and I'm going to first start off by quoting the great Eric Bischoff, and when he was asked a similar question about talking to social media, he says the question you need to ask yourself is there any money in it? And if there ain't no money in it, just don't say it. Now, the thing I think that complicates Sawyer a little bit is that from what I read in the articles about it, it wasn't just a one tweet. There were a bunch of tweets, and some of them were sexist and some of them were racist. And I think the problem maybe for him was that the one tweet I think everybody seems to be zeroing in on about Al Sharpton came 2 years before he basically got the Flash gig. So it was something that was relatively recent. Now, what I'll give Sawyer this much: at least he had the wherewithal and the common sense, if you will, to apologize for the tweets when they came up. This is unlike Linda Fairstein, who basically oversaw the prosecution of the Central Park Five, where she just refused to acknowledge that she was dead wrong. So I had no problem posting on Facebook cancel Linda Fairstein, because it's like, look, You got it wrong. It's over. Get over it. Move on with it. Apologize. Do what you do. Just fade away. But don't plant your feet down and stand your ground and think it's going to be all good. Then if you're going to operate like that, move on. Somebody admitted that they were the ones responsible for it. You were wrong. Get over it. But with Sawyer, I will agree with you on this, is that I think we have to find a way to basically disagree with people without it leading to disowning them. It's like that's why I'm trying to get a friend of mine to kind of teach me some about what's called restorative justice, because I think, especially as a Christian, I think the thing is that we all know and all believe and understand that people are redeemable, and sometimes redeeming people means seeing them at their worst first before you can get them to their best self. So yeah, mass cancellation and cancel culture, you're right. It lowers the threshold and lowers the bar. I mean, the most egregious example of people engaging in this kind of culture and it coming back to bite you in the behind was the Me Too movement. I mean, I couldn't think of a more public, a more ridiculous, a more tone deaf effort than what the Me Too movement has become, especially in the form of Alyssa Milano. It's just like, guys, if you're going to raise the bar that high on something in terms of holding people accountable, you cannot immediately, the next time it's inconvenient for you, decide, oh, wait a minute, it's my guy now? Oh, no. All that stuff I said a year or two ago, it doesn't count. It doesn't count. It's just it cheapens the conversation. It cheapens the issues at hand. It cheapens the real hurt and pain that we're trying to address when people do these things for the most crass and political and self-serving reasons. So I'm not going to say that I'm against cancel culture, but I think because I think sometimes if people just want to insist on being canceled, okay, be canceled. But I think we also have to have an alternative. We have to have an alternative to what I think is in some way restorative justice, even as a media. But you're right. CW is running a business. At the end of the day, if somebody's saying something that's going to basically, excuse my French, piss off what they may think is 60 to 70% of their customers, bruh, just heave Bischoff. Where's the money in it? Where's the money in it?
All right, well, let's move on to a similar topic. Following an LA Times op-ed from 12 Years a Slave writer John Ridley, Warner Media removed Gone with the Wind from HBO Max. Warner Media promised the film would return with a discussion of its historical context and a denouncement of those very depictions. Is it fair to judge and censor art from past generations through the same lens that we see the world through today?
Okay, so first I'll say this. I am not speaking for every black person in America, what I'm about to say next, much less the world. But I will say this. And I think what I'm about to say has some sentiments in it that are shared by many. Is it fair to judge art from past generations? Yes. Is it fair to censor art from past generations? No. Is it fair to discuss art from past generations in the sense of judging it and looking at it through the current lens? Absolutely. Ridley's entitled to his opinion, just like everybody else in this country. And if he had the influence to get HBO, to get Warner Media to pull Gone with the Wind off the air temporarily, God bless him. Good for him. I mean, I guess he's the kind of customer that businesses listen to. But I don't know if they would have done that if it was me saying that. But I think what I'm surprised by with Warner Media, because I think there was a pretty easy solution to this, and they've employed it before, which is the Tom and Jerry and the Looney Tunes Golden collections, which I own both. And in both of those collections, they had Whoopi Goldberg do a video interview, basically doing the very disclaimer that Warner Brothers is putting out there now. So I'm not sure who was doing what over at HBO Max marketing or who was responsible for the content creation, but this should have been a home run. You get Whoopi Goldberg, who was the first black actress to win an Academy Award. And I think it was the same one, supporting actress, since Hattie McDaniel had won it for Gone with the Wind. You get Halle Berry, who was the next one to win Best Actress, the first black actress to win it. And you get them to basically go back and forth on the disclaimer that Warner Media already had at the disposal. And then if you wanted to put a little cherry on top for Ridley and whoever else is concerned about it, then you have either them or, I don't know, Morgan Freeman moderate discussion talking about not only the historical setting of Gone with the Wind, but also talk about what Hollywood was like at that time. it happened. Gone with the Wind was made. It happened. It was reflecting a period of time and the way that people thought. Just like the Looney Tune cartoons happened. Just like the Tom and Jerry cartoons happened, where Tom and Jerry has pretty much a much more exaggerated version of the mammy character in it. But I think, and I give Ridley to his credit to this. He's not saying pull it away forever or throw it in the vault. He's not for censorship. He's just saying temporarily to take it off and then put it on in a way that allows for that discussion to be had about all of the racial issues that really we're still struggling and dealing with today. And so I think it's definitely fair to judge art through the lens of today, but I think you have to do it in a way that is honest and both honest and critical. So, and I like the fact that he provided solutions. You know, he didn't just say, "Oh, take this off, it's no good." At first, I wasn't sure what he was talking about when he was like taking it off for a respectful amount of time, and then I realized he was referencing to all the protesting stuff that's going on right now. So this is the only pushback I'm gonna give to Ridley, having participated in a march or two now over the last week or so. While I was out there marching for a peace truce, believe me, Gone with the Wind being on HBO Max was out of my mind. I was gonna put that one right out there. That was at the top of my mind. But I think what it also leads us into is that, and I think where Ridley's on course with this is that we have to start having discussions about race in America. We just have to start having it. I think it was and let me look this up real quick. I think it was the Public Religion Research Institute, if I remember correctly, they had done a study about 5 years ago. And what they found was that basically just about a full 75% of white people basically have social networks that have zero minority presence in them. Zero. Now, to be fair, they found that the same holds true for about 2/3 of Black Americans. So the implications of the findings is that basically when we're talking about race in our personal lives, we're pretty much talking about it with people who look like us. We're not talking about it with other people and getting their sense of what they're talking about or what their perspective is on. So this is going to sound kind of jacked up as I'm saying it, but I'll say it for all parties involved. Get a friend that doesn't look like you. Get a friend that comes from a different background from you. And when it comes, and I'm going to say this in the context of what's going on with the Black Lives Matter protests with George Floyd, because I had to say this when Philando Castile got shot and killed. Because with Philando Castile, what happened was that Philando Castile did exactly what every Black man in particular is told to do when he's given a talk by his parents. Recognize that the cops are more afraid of you than you are of them. Do everything that they tell you to do and explain yourself as you're doing it. And the man got shot up anyway. So this is why when Bernie Sanders, when he was running for president, when he was asked a question from a young Black man about what should he do with the interaction with police, this is why Sanders' response was garbage. Because the advice that we have been given as Black men about how to deal with the police got totally destroyed with that Philando Castile encounter. And so as my wife said, well, what is he supposed to say? I said, he's supposed to say he didn't train those police differently. Whatever groups they're in, their social circles, they need to start having different conversations about Black people. Because I don't know what these people are telling these cops. I don't know what these conversations you're having, but it should not result in the lunch cafeteria guy that's beloved by all the children at the school, Black, white, Puerto Rican, and Haitian, and getting lit up following your orders while explaining what he's doing with a young Black girl sitting in the backseat of the car. So I know we went from woo and it got over there, but I think the bottom line is that we need to talk about race in America. We need to create every opportunity to do so. And we all need to make a better effort of basically getting out of our social circles to include people in it who don't look like us and have different perspectives of us, not just ethnically, but also politically as well. It's worked for me.
Absolutely. I do feel like we're starting to circle the drain of an Orwellian nightmare as far as we're just taking down any monument that might represent something that we don't agree with today. Well, just because a monument or a piece of art is there doesn't mean that it's endorsed what it represents, but it does mean it's an opportunity to start a discussion. When you see it, you can remember, why is it there? Why do we need to have a discussion with that? And a lot of those things can be very painful memories or pieces of history that, quite frankly, we can't be very proud of, but we need to know that it happened so we can never repeat those things again in the future. So this idea that we can just strip down all of our history and have a utopian society, it doesn't work that way. We will forget why we needed to remember that in the first place, and we will just start a cycle and repeat those things again in the future. So I obviously am not for censorship of things in the past. I don't think that we should be ripping down monuments, but there certainly should be explanations of why that monument is important and why we should be discussing it rather than trying to cleanse away our history as if we wipe it away, it never happened.
But then I have to give one caveat that then Wes, because I do agree with the people in terms of if we want to say rip it down to be moved, because I would say if I went down to Florida and I put up a statue of Fidel Castro for whatever reason, I know for a fact there's certain people in the Cuban community would have a problem with that. But to your point, we do have to have a discussion about it, but I think it has to be a more honest discussion than we've been having right now. And I don't think we've had honest discussions. I think there have been whitewash discussions about what is going on in race. I think even that's somewhat to Ridley's point with Gone with the Wind, which I think is that the movie's the movie. I don't want a George Lucas special edition version of Gone with the Wind, which is what I thought when I saw the first headline. I thought that's what he was going for. I was like, bro, no, I'm not doing that. But in terms of having a real honest discussion about the forces at play in history, even what was going on in Hollywood and the dynamics, fine. But I agree with you. I'm not going to say I'm for leaving the monuments of my oppressors up in public squares that I have to look at all the time. I think there's museums that would be perfectly fine. You can move them to, and y'all can have all the discussions you want in museums, or somebody told me they go to cemeteries. But in terms of me being constantly reminded that this is the guy who basically he fought for me being less than somebody else, and as they say, bump that. But like I said, I think the fact that we're having these conversations now, I think that's the important thing, is that we're talking about it. We're talking about how we're talking about it honestly. And as long as we keep talking about it and then doing something about it, I think we'll get to the America that we all think it should be. So I'll go with that one there. So let me ask you about this, Wes. I watched a video yesterday about this next topic. So tell me how you really feel about Detective Comics 1027, 144-page story with 11 creative teams. And I know we're going to talk about which creative pairing do you believe will deliver the best Batman story. But I want to hear how you really feel about 1027.
It's a fixed milestone. It doesn't mean anything. Like, you already had your Detective Comics 1000. You charged $10. You put the all-star creative team on there. To run it back less than like 18 months later for another cash grab is bullcrap. And it isn't even the 1,000th appearance of Batman. That would be 1026. So it's stupid. It's just a cash grab. It's something I would expect out of Marvel. It is not something I would expect out of DC Comics, who I personally feel have a higher editorial a standard for doing things like this, but I do think they are lowering themselves down to another level. Obviously, the big milestone issues have done very well for DC Comics. They've been very lucrative. Action Comics 1000, Detective Comics 1000, looked like Wonder Woman 750 did bonkers, and I know they're doing a lot of the 80th anniversary issues. So yes, they do want to make some money off of these things, but when you go too far, you water it down, and it doesn't mean it's not important anymore.
So do you think the first two that you mentioned from DC, did you think they were quality product regardless of the strategy?
When you're charging that much money for a comic book, and then you have certain creative teams on there, your expectations are pretty high. I was shocked. I thought the Wonder Woman 750 was better overall quality than Action Comics or Detective Comics 1000. I thought the stories were better in there, even though it had far worse writers in it. So I was a little bit taken back, a little bit shocked. And although we do have a Green Lantern 80th anniversary coming out with the Denny O'Neil story in it, I can't wait for that. I'm very excited. Definitely be getting that one. But you expect a lot when you have that big of a price tag, when you have those creators on it. So absolutely. It does set expectations high.
Yeah, and my thing is, honestly, I was talking to somebody else about this, and it's like I told him, I said, bro, for me, it's like this is starting to feel like it's a slap in the face, and only because it was combined with the announcement that Marvel is going to do their Wednesday variant titles with the pastel colors and whatever's going to show up. It's like I'm with Perch on this one, where it's like, but I love Perch's video because it was the right level of just reserve, frustration, and anger. I'm like, guys, are you seriously going to start ramming this stuff down our throats? Because it's like, if you do this, I'm not going to be supporting this crap going forward. You are getting me to the point where I'm going to find something else to do with my time and my money. I do not care about paying 10 to 15 to 20 bucks for a bunch of stories that may or may not be any good by a bunch of artists that at least 3 of those creative teams I saw, I don't know what they had to do with Batman, much less the history of the Detective Comics. And it's like, I still want my money back from incoming. I think on that alone, I should be able to take incoming in and get a credit towards Detective Comics 1027, because I'm not doing this. It's like, if these, I mean, with Marvel, with that variant cover thing, it's like, guys, if they seriously go through with that, I'm going to have to seriously reconsider as a fan, not as a businessman going into it, but as a fan, support this hobby, because you can't be serious with this. They just can't be serious with this. It's like, that's too much money. And at the very least, offer me the option to at least buy the stories a la carte digital. So if I don't want to put up with your $20, your $15, $10, $15, $20 nonsense, then I could buy the story that I actually want. Because I would love to buy the story with Ivan Rice. I'm just not sure. And I'm sure Kelly Sue DeConnick is a lovely woman. She loves her mother. She doesn't kick her dog. But after the Aquaman run, I'm good. And I don't feel like I should have to be held be imprisoned to buy it, because I want to read the Rice story, to have to pay for that story. I'm not doing it. So to all those in Marvel and all those DC, cut the crap. Get your editorial departments in order. Pay them more money. Give them more time off. Do something. But this ain't making it. This ain't making it. So CB, Jim, guys, come on now. It's like, we're going into step up your game. We're going to a new economic environment. While it's going to get tight, this is what you guys are going to put out there. It's going to make 94, what was it? What was the big contraction? 94, 95. It's going to make this joint look like a cakewalk. Okay, so no.
All right, well, Gervain, we went a little bit long. We had some very more heavy-handed topics than normal today. We they needed more time than the normal. We had a couple things we were going to discuss. They weren't all that important. We got the big ones in here, and I really appreciate you stepping in for Skip and joining me here on geek-span this week. And do you have anything you wanted to say before we wrap this up?
Before we wrap it up, as you can see down there at the bottom, guys, that is the official email address for Animated Concepts, info@animatedconcepts.biz. As you all do know, or hopefully know at this point, and if not, I'm about to tell you, we are doing paid focus groups in the month of July. If you are interested in being a part of that focus group, shoot me an email at info@animatedconcepts.biz. We'll get you on the list, let you know if you're going to be included in the July group or one of the later groups of the focus groups. But we want to hear from our fans. We want to hear from the fans, hear from the customers. So when 2021 rolls around and we start putting things out, we can give you the best product we possibly can. So remember, that's info@animatedconcepts.biz. Send me your name, email address, phone number, address if you trust me that much, so we can get you signed up for one of the focus groups. And Wes, thank you for the opportunity to come on Thinking Critical. It's always a blast when I come on. Always enjoy it.
Well, the pleasure was all mine. Really appreciate having here and your perspective on all these topics. Like I said, it was a heavy-handed edition, but it certainly we needed to talk about these things.
Most definitely. And I also want to say, just say one more thing. All my love and hope and kisses go out to my sweet comic angel, Larry. I had a great time doing the debate, but I'm going to wait to hear the final decision, but I think I'm getting that $100 gift card. Other than that, everybody have a great weekend and take care, all right?
Larry got it pretty hard at the comments, but it happens. He'll be able to redeem himself in the future. Later, everybody.
Yeah, that's right. All right.